This is the AHSAA Weekly, your inside look at everything going on with the Alabama High School Athletic Association. I'm John Holder. Coming up on this week's program, we'll visit with the new Associate Executive Director of the Alabama High School Athletic Association. Kim Vickers joins us right here in the studio this week. Also, we will meet the Class 4A Making a Difference Award winner for 2021, Coach Eddie Bullock of Anniston High School. We'll preview this week's Center Point Fairfield game. That is the AHSAA statewide game of the week here on WOTM. And we'll visit with the head coach of the Center Point Eagles, Coach George Bates. And of course, we've got David Holtzford's highlights. We take you around the state for a look at volleyball and football highlights from all across the state of Alabama. All of that and more on this week's AHSAA Weekly.
Every bank has their own app, but it's just that, theirs, not yours. At AmFirst, our app was made for you. So it's easy to pay bills, deposit checks, or transfer money to friends and family from anywhere. It's even customizable, which means you can personalize your dashboard, create usage alerts, and redeem points for rewards you'll love. And you can do it all on your own time. So what are you waiting for? Get the app made for you at AmFirst.
We are back on the AHSAA Weekly, and we are joined live in studio by a very special guest. She is the new Associate Executive Director of the Alabama High School Athletic Association. Kim Vickers joins us at this time. Glad to have you with us live in studio. Congratulations on the new job, becoming only the sixth Associate Athletic Director of the Association and the first female, so congratulations.
Yes, sir. Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
Has there been a big adjustment? Of course, you were on staff for the last several years with AHSAA. Moving into this new role, has it been a big change?
Actually, it has not. You know, for the last 6 to 7 years, I've been working with Coach Mr. Savarese, because we called Coach Savarese, very closely with the day-to-day duties of the association. So I tell people, really, it's almost just like a new title, not necessarily a new job, because I'm still doing a lot of what I was doing.
Talk about some of the new duties that you do have. What will you be doing in addition to what you've been doing with the Athletic Association?
One of those would be assisting the executive director more at championship events. You know, in the past, I was not always at every championship. I was only those that I was responsible for. But as the associate executive director, I'll work closely with Mr. Alvin Briggs, the new executive director, and we'll work all the championship events. And of course, I step in when he's not there, and that's a new role, a new position for me, as being what we call the second in charge. You know, they come to me when Alvin's out of the office.
I would think, of course, Coach Briggs has only been on the job for a couple of months now as the new executive director, but I wouldn't think there's probably been a whole lot of changes at the AHSA office.
Well, they really hasn't. You know, while we were all a little worried about Coach leaving and as he was retiring, we have transitioned into our new positions fairly smoothly. You know, there are changes and there are times we have to talk through things, but I think overall the change has been very successful and we're moving right along. Is what I keep saying, the sun's going to rise tomorrow no matter who's in charge, and we've been moving right along.
You came to the Athletic Association as Director of Publications initially, but then a lot of other things besides just Director of Publications got added very quickly. Talk about the things you've done in the past with Athletic Association.
Okay, when I was hired to be the Director of Publications, which basically was just in charge of all the publications that came from the office. Since then, within 6 months of taking on that position, because of my English background, I'm a former English teacher, Mr. Savarese had me proofing a lot of letters and things that came out of our office. So I started helping him with all of the eligibility rulings, and then one thing leads to a next and to another and to another. And before I knew it, Coach Savarese had me involved in a lot more than what my original job description was, set up for. But I took the challenge on. Probably within 6 months, my job description had changed.
The 2020-2021 school year, an athletic year, for everybody in the country, including us here in Alabama, the most challenging school year and athletic year ever, I think, because of COVID-19. But the Athletics Association did a phenomenal job. The only state in the country where we had all championship events that were completed, every season was completed, and crowned state champions. Kind of take us through, from your perspective, what last year was like.
Well, in March of 2020, we all got the news about the same time that the state was shutting down. Our school systems were closing. The superintendent of education came on and said, we're shutting down our schools for the rest of the year. And in doing that, they shut down all extracurricular activities, which that was athletics. So we started at that point, from that day in March, getting ready to return to play. Our first focus was working on getting the students back for summer, summer workouts and conditioning and practice. And we overcome that hurdle, because we work closely with the State Department of Public Health, Dr. Eric Mackey from the State Department of Education, and even the governor's office. We work with all of those with our medical advisory board. We got our students back in the summer of 2020, practicing at their schools. Then we went to work on a return to play for the fall. And we had contingency plans all through the fall. Things were a little different. We had attendance restrictions for a lot of our events, even our outside events in the fall. Volleyball through the fall was our first championship event, and it was like, wow, we can do this. It was hard, it was more difficult, and our schools had, but they were just wanting to play. Come fall, everyone just wanted to play after having to give up the spring season. Then we went through the winter, still because of indoor events with restrictions, but our schools did a phenomenal job doing whatever they could to make sure we had complete seasons. And then by the time we got to the spring, a lot of the state orders were lifted. So we were able to almost be back to normalcy by the end of the season with the spring championships and so forth, with no attendance restrictions, or anything of that nature. So looking back, we all said we never thought we would be here. But it took a lot of work and dedication, and we were all about, that's what we're about, providing opportunities for our students to play, and whatever we needed to do, working long hours, a lot of hours, we did it just so our kids would have an opportunity to play.
Finally, speaking of spring sports, and this had nothing to do with the virus, but another big change that's happened for the first time in 35 years. The state softball championships had been in Montgomery at Lagoon Park since I think 1986. Moved this past spring to Choccolocco Park in Oxford, a wonderful facility, one of the best in the country. You were heavily involved with that. Just talk about the transition from Montgomery to Oxford.
Lagoon Park in Montgomery is known for softball. That's what that facility was built for. I've played there. My husband has played there. Our children have played there. It has a lot of nostalgia to Lagoon Park. The city of Montgomery, those employees are awesome to work with. But our schools were wanting more. They wanted a championship field. They wanted newer facilities. And Choccolocco was built. They were built, with the sole purpose of hopefully hosting our events one day. And they wanted it sooner than they got it. They did host a regional for 2019 and were scheduled to host a regional in 2020. But it just came through where, with the mayor change in Montgomery and the new leadership there, they agreed to swap out the state for a regional just to give it a try. And so we did. Montgomery did an awesome job with a regional tournament, and Oxford did a phenomenal job with a state tournament. And we're looking forward to going back again for the next 2 years to Oxford.
Outstanding. Well, a great job that you've been doing with the Alabama High School Athletic Association through the last several years. I know that's going to continue for years to come. Congratulations on the new position. And thank you for joining us here on the AHSAA Weekly.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, John.
Kim Vickers is the new Associate Executive Director of the Alabama High School Athletic Association. And we'll be back with more of the AHSAA Weekly in just a moment.
The perfect checking account doesn't exist. Not at a bank, that is. So why do you keep looking there? At AmFirst, you can get no minimum balance or monthly fees, an instant issue debit card, and free checks with unlimited check writing. But who doesn't want more? Like a rewards program you'll actually use, and convenient digital tools that make it easy to manage your account from anywhere. Now you could try and find that at a bank, or you could save yourself the trouble by checking with us.
Back on the AHSAA Weekly, time to meet the 2021 Class 4A Making a Difference Award winner. Here's Coach Eddie Bullock of Anniston High School.
Well, the coach that inspired me the most to go into teaching and coaching is actually a guy named Jack Doss. Coach Doss was my 9th grade coach, and ironically, I was pretty smart in school, and he wanted me to go in the medical field. And, when I called him and told him that I was going into coaching, even though my first degree was in management, he didn't like it too well because he wanted me to go into coaching. But I told him I wanted to be like him because he did so much for me when he was coaching me, and I just wanted to be like him. Coach Doss, we talk on a regular basis, and even when I went to the state playoffs, and every year he would keep track of me, and even throughout his entire coaching career, I would call him and check on him, and I would go watch him play, and he would give me little pointers and tell me things to do just like he did when I was playing for him. Well, the biggest thing he taught me is to have a relationship with God. He always talked about God. When I was in the 9th grade, he basically, told me that, if you do things right, you do it the right way, that, God will be on your side. And even when he changed jobs and left Anderson, at one point he had decided that he was not going to coach anymore. And then he came back and told me that he felt like that God wanted him to continue to be in the coaching field, and that's why he continued on, and that's when he went to Hayes. And so, that inspired me a lot. It let me know you could be a Christian and you could still be a coach and, do things and teach people, the things that they need to get. Live on the same street that I grew up on in Anderson, Alabama, and it's ironic because how young kids talk, and my son, he made a comment to some people before and told them that I was the only coach in Anderson that still live in the hood, quote unquote, and you know how young kids talking is funny, but he was actually correct because I actually live, at 1312 Carter Street, and I grew up at 1316, and it's right next door to my mom, so I see her every day. Well, it's a little bit, going into girls basketball is a little bit of trying it for 1 year. Ironically, when I came back to Anderson, I didn't even come back to coach basketball. I was actually at home. I was employment supervisor at Tyson's, and I staffed the plant. And I had just taken a lunch break, and I decided to come home to check on my mom. And my dad was living at the time, and I got a phone call from Coach Davis, Doug Davis, and he had asked my brother to ask me to give him a call, so I just, after I got through with lunch, I was at my mom's house, I just drove up to the field house, and he actually had a telephone in his hand, and he said, I was just trying to call you. And I asked him what did he need, and he said, I need help, I need a coach. And I told him, I said, well, I don't mind coaching. I said, but I hadn't quite finished my certification yet. And he said, not to worry about it. He said, I just need help, Ed. And I was like, okay. So I actually went in to help him be a football coach. And I ended up not helping him the first semester that I actually got hired. But they needed a B-team basketball coach. And I never really applied for it. And Dr. Nyland ended up giving me the job. And I coached those guys for 5 years. And then we got Coach Justice, Mike Justice, as football coach. And he came to me one day. He promoted me to defensive coordinator. And he told me one day that he needed help. He said that I need somebody to coach the girls. I don't have a girls coach. And I turned him down about 5 times. I told him I never envisioned coaching girls, didn't want to coach them, no idea of coaching them. He came back to me the last time and he said, Coach, I kind of look out for you and I help you out. And he said, I really need this favor. And he told me, he said, coach the girls this year, and if you don't like it, we'll let you go back to doing what you did. And if you like it, that's fine. And this was 2005, 2006. And so I actually coached him that year. And lo and behold, I went to the state the first year. I got beat by UMS Ryder, didn't have a clue what was going on. I think I can do this, and it became a challenge because the girls were so different from the boys, not as athletic, didn't stay in the gym as much, but they worked harder. You could ask them to run through a brick wall and, they would ask which one, and they would try it, and so I was like, I think I can do this, and that's what made me continue to go on and coach the girls. And, I went 2 more years and got beat in the regionals in 2007, 2008, and then 2009. I actually made it back again, but I ran into that juggernaut called midfield and Reggie Ware, and, we lost to them in the finals, and my career just kept going on from there. Believe it or not, throughout my basketball career, I've never cut a player. I never cut a football player. I never cut a boys basketball player, and I never cut a girls basketball player. And my goal is, and it was and is to take that player and make them the best player that they can be. You know, everybody can't be, you know, LeBron James or Kevin Durant or Candace Parker. They can't do that. But what you can do, I equate success with the fact if you can get the best out of that player and you can move them from point A to point B in their career or with their skill set. And basically that's what I try to do. I've had some girls that played with me, and no offense, they probably couldn't make a team, any other school team, but I kept them on my team because I tried to teach them that it's not all about that top player that go to college or that best player that helps you to win the county or the area or the region or the state, but it's about making that player feel just as important as you do that superstar. And I've always done it, and I'll continue to do it because I just feel that that's important. You know, that kid that only played 3 or 4 minutes the whole season is just important to me as that kid that played the whole season. Being a nurturing coach gives me more of a family type atmosphere. You know, like my son played, and you know, I would fuss at my son, and you know, he would then ask me for $20, or he asked me to go somewhere, and that's my son. I have to do it for him, you know. And I had to let him know that, you know, you told me you wanted to go to college and you wanted an opportunity to play professionally, and I told him, I said, well, this is what we got to do. You know, you asked for it, this is what we got to do. So by the same token with the girls, you know, I can get on to them, you know, I can fuss at them, you know, but at the same time, when they need something, if they need a ride, if they need something to eat, if they need some shoes or socks or something, they know I'm just a phone call away. And it's not that they owe me anything, it's more of a father type figure. You know, I tell them, y'all have biological fathers at home, but when you're at school, I'm your father, you know. So grade wise, you got to come to me. You got a bad grade, I'm calling you at home. I'm pulling you out of class. You know, just different things like that. If we got pregame meal, you know, we done had some students that they just didn't have money, or some kids that couldn't afford shoes. So, you know, okay, let's go get the shoes, and I got to write a check. And, you know, you don't owe me anything, you know, just play hard and do right. That's what Coach Doss used to tell us, just do right. If you live right, and I tell them I try to practice what I preach. You know, if I ask you to do something, or I direct you in a certain direction, either I've seen it, I've done it, or I'm trying to do it myself, you know, because I'm not going to ask you to do anything that, you know, I don't believe in and I wouldn't do myself.
Looking for a perfect checking account? Don't waste your time. No minimum balance, no monthly fees, and a convenient app. Now you could try and find that at a bank, or you could save yourself the trouble by checking with us.
WOTM is the television provider for all Alabama High School Athletic Association championship events and special programs. WOTM is your home for the Super 7 football, state finals basketball, baseball and softball state championships, the AHSAA Weekly show, and WOTM also produced the first ever football playoff show, Super 7 preview show, and reclassification reveal show. Your exclusive home for all things AHSAA is WOTM. Contact your local cable provider to request WOTM to your channel lineup.
Every bank has their own app, but it's just that, theirs. At AM First, our app was made for you, so you can personalize your dashboard, pay your bills, and redeem points for rewards you'll love. Get the app made for you at AM First.
Back on the AHSAA Weekly, coming up this week, Thursday night is the AHSAA statewide game of the week here on the AHSAA TV network and WOTM. That matchup is going to be a Metro Birmingham matchup between the Centerpoint Eagles, Fairfield Tigers, and we've got the head coach of Centerpoint with us, Coach George Bates. Coach, welcome in. Glad to have you with us this week on the AHSAA Weekly.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Coach, I know you're scheduled to play last week, so this was going to be game 2, but a forfeit win over Winona, so you had, I guess, an extra week to prepare. How does that affect when you're planning on playing a game, you're preparing for an opponent, the game doesn't happen, and now this game coming up will actually be your season opener?
It's tough from the standpoint of you go through the whole offseason, you go through the summer, and you're building up fall camp, and you get ready for your first game. You're getting ready for your first game, and then you know your spirits get dampened the day before the game that you have to cancel, or you know, is a forfeit, you know, due to COVID. We respect want to make sure everybody stays safe and healthy. So we understood that aspect of it, but it still dampened our spirits.
Coach, let's talk about most of the summer. Most of May and June, even into July, was actually below normal, kind of cool for Alabama standards. And then right about the time we start football practice, here comes the heat. How have the summer workouts been? How have your young men been acclimated to the heat and so forth?
We have an amazing, athletic training staff. Ms. Emily does an amazing job. She has a group of 6 student managers, student trainers that help her out. And like right now, they have all the hydration stations ready for us. We give them multiple breaks throughout. We actually send them inside a few times, throughout practice under cool air, to cool down, and then we bring them back out. And so it's been tough, but there's no way around it, man. It's still going to be hot, this Thursday night, so we got to prepare for it at practice. It's just no way around it, but it has been unseasonably warm lately.
Coach, tell us about your opponent, Fairfield, coming up. Last year they came in and came out with a 21-20 win. Talk about the matchup Thursday night.
We know they'll be athletic. They'll be big. They didn't play a game one or a jamboree either. We don't have the spring game, either. So we're kind of going at it, coaching the first game, kind of blind. But we feel like, once we handle fundamentals and, I let our techniques, take care of itself, we'll be fine. But they're going to be, I know they have some kids that have some Power 5 offers. They have a kid that just committed to Auburn on last week. So they have some guys, guys that are ranked, at their position. And we're going to just see what we can do, see if we can go give them a game on Thursday night.
Coach, thank you for spending time with us, time out of your busy schedule. Best wishes to you and your team on Thursday night here on WOTM, taking on the Fairfield Tigers.
All right, thank you. Wings up.
George Bates, head coach of the Center Point Eagles, getting ready for that big game on Thursday here on WOTM with Fairfield.
WOTM is the television provider for all Alabama High School Athletic Association championship events and special programs. WOTM is your home for the Super 7 football, state finals basketball, baseball and softball state championships, the AHSAA Weekly show, and WOTM also produced the first ever football playoff show, Super 7 preview show, and reclassification reveal show. Your exclusive home for all things AHSAA is WOTM. Contact your local cable provider to request WOTM to your channel lineup.
Closing out this week's edition of the AHSAA Weekly, time for David Holtzford's highlights. David Holtzford of the AHSAA providing us highlights courtesy of the NFHS Network and, of course, right here at WOTM with some highlights from across the state of Alabama. We've got volleyball and football highlights for you this week. We begin in football with Morgan County rivals Danville and Brewer opening up. This game up in Morgan County with the Hawks and the Patriots of AP Brewer High School. This was a defensive juggernaut. We pick up the action with Danville's Bo Huff scoring a rushing touchdown from 8 yards out. Danville's only other score came on a pass play from Gage Taylor to Cole Randolph. And then Brewer scored late to cut the lead to 12-7 on this 65-yard touchdown pass from Caden Childers to DJ Burney. But the Hawks defense would close this out as Danville starts the season 1-0. Next, we have Homewood's battle at Hillcrest Tuscaloosa, an offensive thriller coming down to the final seconds. The score is tied 35-0. Homewood gets a key pass interference call on a pass down the right sideline to set up this 27-yard field goal attempt on the last second of the game by kicker J.C. Daniel. Wasn't pretty, but it did clear the uprights to give Homewood the season-opening win over Hillcrest 37-34. Volleyball teams also opened play last week. We head to the 37th Amelia Roach Volleyball Tournament held annually at Kinston in South Alabama in honor of its former coach and Hall of Fame member Coach Rhodes. We catch some highlights of Kinston's Bulldogs taking on New Brockton. Kinston, led by Coach Suzanne Elmore, and North-South All-Star senior Faith Peters, fell behind early in this set, but clawed back to go undefeated for the tournament, beating the Gamecocks, Brantley, and Sampson in pool play, and then defeating Geneva and Strawn to claim the championship. Back to football, we go north again to Sparkman High School in the Madison County community of Harvest, where the Gardendale Rockets block a Senators punt early, rolled to the back of the end zone for a safety, giving Gardendale momentum and a 2-0 lead. Later in the quarter, Rockets quarterback Tyler Nelson keeps up the middle, never stops moving his feet as Steve streaks through the defense all the way to the end zone for a touchdown. He made that one look easy. Trailing 16-0 in the second quarter, Sparkman gets on the board with a great throw and catch from quarterback Luke Schomburg to receiver Matthew Rozier. We see this catch again as he goes over the defender to snag the ball out of the air. The Rockets' running game, sparked by L.T. Sanders, was just too much to handle. We see Sanders polishing off the Gardendale win with this amazing 95-yard run for the touchdown. He finished with 197 yards, and Nelson would also rush for 2 touchdowns as the Rockets won on the road 34-20 at Sparkman. We head to Anniston to check on 2020 Class 1A state volleyball runner-up Donahoe. Its home opener with Calhoun County rival Weaver. The Falcons, who also won the state title in 2019, look strong, winning this extremely long volley thanks to the strong play of Lily Grace Draper and Maggie Wakefield. Donahoe beat the Bearcats 25-15, 25-15, 25-10 to start off 1-0. The Falcons followed up over the weekend by winning the Smith Lake Volleyball Invitational Tournament. A strong start by the Donahoe Falcons out of Anniston in Class 1A volleyball up in the Calhoun County area. Great volleyball by Donahoe. Now on to Montgomery. We close this week's highlights with exciting plays. The 16th annual Kickoff Classic at Crampton Bowl. Thursday's action begins with Hanley quarterback Cannon Kiles connecting with Jordan West for a 28-yard touchdown, the first TD of the new season. Later in the first half, Hanley's Kiles preparing to punt, finds himself under duress, dumps a pass to Quay Lewis, still in the backfield, and the speedster runs across the turf for 63 yards and another touchdown. And then it was Tigers defensive lineman Brian Joyner closing out the first quarter with a dream come true. The big man wrestles the ball away from Guntersville's Logan Pate and rambles 14 yards into the end zone for the first touchdown of his high school career. There's a close-up of the action there on the Crampton Bowl surface in Montgomery. Pate rebounds, however, as we pick Guntersville senior scoring up right here, racing 25 yards for a touchdown. He would finish with 2 scores on the night. We close out the Thursday Kickoff Classic with Kiles firing a perfect strike to Jamerquay Lewis, 39-yard touchdown pass right here, and then followed that up with a 63-yard pass following the ensuing kickoff. And then Guntersville quarterback Cole McCarty to Cooper Davison right here with that 63-yard pass, a 55-21 win by Hanley over Guntersville in the Thursday night Kickoff Classic at the Crampton Bowl in Montgomery. Friday night in the Kickoff Classic, 2 7A teams, Wiregrass Power, Dothan, and Madison's Bob Jones High School down 3-0 early. Dothan quarterback Javari Jackson finds Josiah Lynn for 40 yards, giving the Wolves a 7-3 lead. On this play, 3 minutes later, it's Jackson again connecting this time with Zay Henry for 65 yards and another touchdown as Dothan mounts a 14-3 lead. In the second quarter, Bob Jones quarterback Ray Hardy runs into the end zone for the first Patriots touchdown of the season. Hardy would finish with 106 yards passing and 66 yards rushing with 2 rushing touchdowns. Bob Jones running back Tyron Washington also had 2 touchdowns. This one shown right there, cutting the Wolves' lead to 28-17. The Dothan offense too strong, though. Josiah Lynn taking the snap and racing 44 yards for the clinching Wolves touchdown on their way to the win down at the Crampton Bowl in Montgomery. Thanks once again to David Holtzford and the NFHSA Network affiliates across the state of Alabama for providing those highlights and putting those together for us here on the AHSAA Weekly. That will do it for this week's show. We'll see you back here next week on the AHSAA Weekly.